Hey, what's going on guys, Khrase here, welcome back to another Ghost of Tsushima Legends video, and today let's talk about the Assassin class and how you can improve your gameplay with it that much more. In this video I want to talk about a few tips and tricks that I learned along the way by playing with this class. I absolutely love it, but I truly believe that there's a lot of people out there who aren't playing it to its maximum potential, especially since you're kinda like in a team. Your teammates will not always give you the room to go in and stealth assassinate targets, because that's not always going to be an option, so you can't always go in silent mode and take everybody on and wait for your kills to come in clean. So in this video I'm going to give you the best tips and tricks to make the most out of the worst circumstances and force those assassinations even in the worst possible scenarios. So let's begin with one thing and let's clear this up, because this is going to be extremely important. Forget about the gear, forget about the other things, just go over the technique first, because this is going to be the one that is the most important. I think that if I were to take this on the way it looks right now, I think that this is likely going to be the best build all around for an assassin, no matter if you're playing 2-player co-op or if you're doing the 4-player survival missions. So let's begin over with the first skill right here and why you should go with the Toxic Vanish right off the bat. Well, not really right off the bat, because it's not going to make too much sense until later down the line, but it can still be useful in the beginning. So this ability right here, what it does is that it makes you vanish in a cloud of poison smoke that deals stagger, and keep in mind that word right there, stagger damage to nearby enemies. Basically, when you throw your vanish powder down, you're going to see that all of the enemies that are in the proximity are going to be affected by this green smog that will kind of stagger them and also deal damage a little bit over time. But the stagger mechanic is the one that's going to be the most important, because this is going to combine with a number of other abilities later down the skill tree. So until then, let's talk about the next ability in the sequence that is going to enable your build even forward. So this is going to be the Super Strike. Basically, it gives you kind of like a different type of assassination for your assassin. It makes you perform a stronger stealth attack that instead deals 2 times the amount of damage than you would with your regular assassinate. So when you go against the target, oftentimes you will see that now there's a triangle button over their head that indicates that you can perform a super assassinate. So if super assassinate doesn't sound awesome, I'm not sure what is. But this is actually where the build comes together, and this is around rank 16. So until then you kind of have to pull in a little bit, pull yourself by the boot, and it's gonna take a bit of time until then, case in which you might want to go with something like experienced assassin or maybe light step. But by far the best one in the third row is going to be the opportunist, and the reason for that is because now if you have an enemy that is staggered, you will also deal 50% additional bonus assassination damage. So do you remember how that vanish that we had previously deals stagger damage because it poisons enemies? Well, not only with that assassination can you double your damage using the super assassination, but then you can add another 50% on top, because your targets are also going to be pretty much staggered from those poisons. Don't worry, these are not going to be the only sources of poison that we will use with this build right here, but having these alone right here, having these 3 abilities right here, or even like a couple of them, can be the difference between barely tickling one of the more menacing enemies like the big brutes and whatnot, or maybe even some of the mini bosses and even the bosses, to all around absolutely destroying them, cutting them in half, absolutely mangling them, and making them wish that their mothers never gave birth to them if they did. But if you think that this is where we stop, you might be wrong, because as I've said, we're going to heavily rely on assassinations, and we will want to chain assassinate as many high value targets as possible so that we can clear the teammates of other stuff that they need to do, and so we can take those high value targets as fast as possible. And this brings us to the chain vanish that you can get at rank 11. So what this does is when you perform a successful assassination, which means basically when you kill the target in one single hit during that assassination, you will be able to vanish a second time, reactivating your vanish and refreshing its duration. And yes, this works with literally every single skill up until that point, including the Toxic Vanish, so you will be able to reapply Toxicity Stagger back to the enemies again, because you are doing that reactivation right there. here. So this is basically the gist of it. This is how you will do. You will go into combat, you will see the high value targets, go right next to them, press that vanish button, which should be like the arrow down button. That's going to stagger them because you also apply the toxic damage, and you will want to press triangle to assassinate one of the high value targets. As soon as you do that, you're going to enter again into a stealth mode, you're going to reapply the stagger toxic, and you're going to go ahead and re-assassinate a second target all over again. Now, of course, if you're low level, if your gear is not good enough, if you're still trying to gear yourself up, you might not always kill something in one shot, but most of the time, even high value targets are going to get at least 95% of their HP absolutely slashed right there like it never even existed. So of course, this is my preferred combination, this is how I like to do it, but you are free to go with something different. Now, as far as the weapons and equipment goes, let's go over these because you can never make the most out of these. Sometimes you might get something with higher key and it might not have the proper stats, case in which you might want to reroll, but here are some general guidelines. For the katana, the best stance in the game right now is the water stance. Well, technically speaking, you can get swords with different types of stances. You might even already found a few that have a couple of stances, but there are some legendary ones that give you access to all 4 of them at the same time. But in this case, if you were to find one of these weapons that might be good for you, try to roll on it until you get it with the water stance. The reason for that is because you have that flurry of attacks that you can do with the triangle, so hold down triangle and then release it and continuously tap it after that, and you're going to be able to do this flurry right here, which is going to overwhelm literally any type of enemy, breaking guards and dealing a huge amount of damage. Also on the square hold, you're going to be able to do this spin attack right here, which is also going to deal really high damage and usually bypasses quite a few guards. As far as the rolls on it, pretty much think of it this way. Your main objective over here is to have as low cooldowns as possible, deal as high damage as possible, and maybe apply some stagger onto the target. So those are the stats you will want, not just on the katana but on the rest too. In this case, mine comes with melee damage, ultimate damage, which is already amazing, and it comes with the water master, which inflicts increasingly higher damage with each attack in my surging strike. And by the way, surging strike is exactly the ability we're using the water stance in the first place anyway. For the ranged, of course, my preferred one is the blowgun because I can apply an additional source of stagger. Particularly these ones that roll with hallucination darts on them can also be very useful, situationally very useful, because you can turn an enemy into a friend to aid you in combat. And yes, it works on brutes, on tougher enemies, it can work in combat. Just make sure that you tell your teammates to not screw it up by attacking those targets. And also, by the way, check this one out. This has stealth attack damage and status effect damage duration, which is going to be all around amazing for my build. Now, for the charm, of course, go with stealth charms that, well, just augment your stealth. In this case, I have one that reduces my cooldown, and it also reduces my cooldown on kill. So this is exactly what you need. This is exactly what you need for your assassin build right here on these 3 items alone. Now, of course, on your ghost weapon, it's a matter of preference. One of them is going to be important to change to something else, but let me tell you about the first one. You might want to go with a damage weapon. Maybe you like kunais, maybe you find one that resets your cooldowns or throws additional kunais, go with that. You can also find some that set enemies on fire. Personally, I think that in this game, the explosions, the sticky bombs, are probably some of the best in the game, so you might want to go with something like this because it's just crazy. But kunais can work too, especially if you have something with flame on it. Also, dirt throw can work really nice to momentarily stagger the enemy, but I think that sticking bomb would be the best overall for AoE damage. In the final slot, the one with the utility or ghost weapon too, you must, and I cannot stress this enough, you must go for a smoke bomb. As I've said, we need to stay under invisibility cloak for as long as possible. We need to vanish all the time so we can perform assassinations. So in this case, you will want one of these. By the way, if in case you have a low level one and you don't really know what to do with it, do this. If you have a high power level like 78 and yours, the last one that you got was like 52, go in, reforge it, and bam, it's 80 all over again. It's that simple. You can of course re-roll on it, maybe get a chance to, I'm not sure, get it as an epic quality. Let's try again. Okay, still not epic. Now it's epic quality, and look at that, stealth damage and cooldown reduction on kill, absolutely exactly what I needed, and I needed that in the first place anyway. So this is my recommendation when it comes to items. As far as the playstyle goes, if you play it, it's going to come naturally, as I've said. Prioritize those high value targets, vanish next to them so you can perform the high quality assassinations, and from that point on you're going to constantly want to do the stealth dance all over again. But this is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by leaving a like on this video, subscribing to the channel, and commenting your opinion in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.